You ever stand in your garden around this time of year, late October, early November, and just pause? You look at all those tired brown plants, the empty spaces, and you think, well, I suppose that's all for this season. Yeah, I've been there. We all have. But here's a piece of wisdom I've gathered over the years. Your garden doesn't have to die just because the calendar says November. In fact, this quiet, dormant-looking time, this is when some of the most profound and rewarding crops actually begin their journey. This is the quiet time, the time when smart, patient gardeners are planting the crops that others overlook. And then they get to smile in the cold of December while everyone else is just staring at empty, frozen beds. So here's what we're doing today. I'm going to share with you 10 seeds you absolutely must get in the ground this November if you want a garden that keeps on giving, even through the chill. These aren't your typical plant garlic and wait forever kind of crops. Well, garlic is on the list, but we've got 9 others. We're going for the underrated, the cold-loving, the budget-friendly superstars that will truly surprise you when everything else has stopped growing. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll be looking at November not as the end of your gardening year, but as your secret bridge to the next season. Greetings, fellow growers. Welcome back to the Garden Sage. It's always a pleasure to have you here. If you're new to this space, well, you've found a different kind of gardening channel. Around here, we try to garden with wisdom, patience, and peace. No expensive, complicated gadgets, no stressful, rushed setups. Just real, grounded gardening advice that actually works and respects the soil. So if that sounds like the path you're on, I invite you to hit that subscribe button so you never miss our weekly insights. We have so many more ways to help your garden thrive without adding stress or expense to your life. Here's the truth about late November. It's not an ending, it's a transition. The soil still holds the last echoes of that summer warmth. The air is cool and crisp, and most of the insect pests that drove us all crazy in July, they've finally given up and gone home. This is the perfect window of opportunity, when cool weather crops can quietly take over. The hardy greens, the herbs that don't mind a frost, the roots that grow slow and steady. The trick is simply knowing what to sow right now, so your garden doesn't just sit barren and empty all winter. You want it to be alive, even if it's just under the surface. Feeding your soil, building strength, and then bursting into glorious life the moment spring returns. And don't worry, you don't need a fancy greenhouse or an expensive cold frame. No complicated gear, no big budget. Just a few good seeds, perhaps some containers, and a bit of patience. That's truly all it takes. All right. Let's begin with one of my absolute favorites, a true stalwart of the cool season garden, spinach. Now, most people think of spinach as a spring-only crop, right? But honestly, November is when spinach truly shows its character. It's tough, it's dependable, and it almost seems to enjoy proving people wrong. The colder it gets, the sweeter those leaves become. It's a little bit of nature's magic. That chill triggers the plant to produce more sugars as a natural antifreeze, rewarding you for your patience. When that frost rolls in, spinach doesn't complain. It just gets better. The method here is to sow it generously. Don't be shy with your seeds. Sprinkle them thickly across your soil, whether in a pot or a garden bed. Not every single seed will germinate in the cold, and that is perfectly okay. Once they sprout and get a few true leaves, you can thin them out. That simply means gently pulling out some of the smaller, weaker plants to give the stronger ones room to breathe. And the best part? Those thinnings, those tiny baby leaves, go straight into your kitchen for the first salad of the season. Nothing is wasted, everything is fresh. Spinach also handles a hard frost like a true champion. A light freeze might scare you, but it won't scare your spinach. It just shrugs it off. So, if you want something reliable, delicious, and easy to care for, this is the one to start with. It's low cost, it's forgiving, and it just keeps on giving. Once you grow it in November and taste that sweetness in a cold weather harvest, you'll never skip planting it again. Next up is garlic. This is the great garden investment with guaranteed returns. Here's the thing about garlic. It's one of those crops that makes you feel like a gardening master for how little work it actually requires. You plant it once in the fall, you walk away, and months later you pull up these plump, fragrant, perfect bulbs. It's almost unfair how simple it is. November is the prime season for planting garlic because the cold is essential. The garlic clove needs that long winter chill, a process called vernalization, to trigger it to properly divide and form all those beautiful, separate cloves inside the bulb. You can't rush garlic. It likes time. It demands patience. And it quietly does all its important work underground while you go about your winter. When you plant, go deep. A good rule of thumb is about 2 or 3 inches below the surface. Then mulch heavily. You want to really tuck it in for the winter. Use shredded leaves, straw, or whatever organic matter you have handy. That thick layer of mulch keeps the soil temperature stable, protects the clove from the heaving frost, and saves you from a single moment of worry. Once you've done that, you can honestly forget about it until spring. Garlic doesn't need coddling. It's the kind of crop that rewards restraint. The less you fuss over it, the better it seems to grow. And when spring finally rolls around and you pull up those firm, fragrant bulbs, you'll realize why every seasoned gardener swears by planting garlic in November. It is low effort, high reward. A true long-term win for your garden and your kitchen. Now, let's talk about carrots. One of those humble crops that actually loves the cold more than we do. A lot of new gardeners think carrots can't handle chilled soil, but that is precisely when they shine. The cool weather makes them grow slower, absolutely, but that slower growth is exactly what gives them their incredible sweetness. It's as if the cold convinces the carrot to convert its starches into sugars just to stay warm. And that's why a fall-sown or winter-harvested carrot tastes richer and fresher than anything you'll pull in the heat of summer. Now here's something I've learned the hard way. Carrot seeds can be a little stubborn. They take their time to germinate, especially when it's cold outside. They're tiny, and they can be frustrating. So here's a little piece of wisdom that makes all the difference. Pre-sprout them indoors. It's easy. Just sprinkle the seeds on a damp paper towel, fold it over, and slide it into a plastic Ziploc-style bag. Don't seal it all the way. Leave it somewhere slightly warm for a few days. Check on them around day 4 or 5. Once you see those tiny, thread-like white roots just beginning to peek out, they're ready. Then you take those pre-sprouted seeds, gently, and plant them in your prepared outdoor bed. You'll notice they take off faster and much more evenly, which means no more random empty gaps in your rows later on. Carrots don't ask for much. Give them loose, well-drained soil and a little bit of patience, and they will reward you with sweet, crisp roots that'll make you wonder why you ever thought November was too late to plant anything. All right, now let's move on to lettuce. Specifically, the winter hardy varieties, the ones that don't mind a bit of frost. They just curl up, tough it out, and keep on growing like nothing even happened. You would be surprised at how resilient lettuce truly is. Most people think it's far too delicate for cold weather, but certain types, like winter density, Arctic king, or even certain butterhead varieties, can handle chilly nights without even blinking. They might slow down their growth a little, sure, but they don't quit. That's what makes them such a smart November crop. The beauty of lettuce is how forgiving it can be if you just give it a little bit of protection. It's not asking for a heated greenhouse, just a small cold frame, or, my favorite hack, a simple clear plastic storage tote lid placed over your planting area. It traps a bit of warmth and humidity during the day and shields the leaves from a hard frost at night. Think of it as giving your lettuce a cozy little blanket to sleep under. And if you're tight on space, lettuce doesn't mind growing in containers or window boxes either. Scatter a few seeds, keep the soil slightly moist, and within weeks, you'll have tender leaves that taste better than anything you'll find in a grocery store. And here's the fun part. When that first frost finally hits, the flavor actually improves. The cold brings out a natural sweetness, making them crisp and mild instead of bitter. It's almost like the plant adapts just to please you. Let's talk about peas. Snow peas, snap peas, whichever kind you prefer. These little climbers are some of the most stubborn plants you'll ever meet, in the best way possible. They will sprout right through the chill if you just give them a fair shot. Peas don't care that the air is crisp or that the mornings are frosty. In fact, they love it that way. Cold weather keeps them strong and free from the diseases that plague them in summer. When you plant them in November, you're basically setting them up to establish their roots quietly through the winter. So when the first hint of spring comes, they explode with growth before anything else has even woken up. You'll be the first person harvesting. Now, there's a tiny trick to help them along, and I promise it's worth it. Soak your pea seeds overnight before planting. Just toss them into a bowl of lukewarm water for about 8 to 12 hours. That little soak softens the hard seed coat and wakes up the embryo inside, telling it, hey, it's go time. When you plant those soaked seeds, they germinate faster and much more evenly, which means less waiting and fewer gaps in your rows. If you're planting directly in the ground, just make sure the soil isn't a swamp. Peas don't like to sit in puddles. Damp is good, soggy is bad. And here's what I love most about growing peas in the cold. They stay crisp, sweet, and full of life. Even when everything else in the garden looks dull, you'll be out there in late winter or early spring, picking these bright green pods while everyone else is still flipping through seed catalogs. All right, now let's talk about one of the most underrated November superstars, radishes. I like to call them fast food from your soil because, honestly, nothing grows quicker. You plant them, blink twice, and they're ready. Sometimes in as little as 3 or 4 weeks. That's not an exaggeration. If you've ever been the impatient type in the garden, and let's be real, we've all been there, radishes are your new best friend. They don't need special care. They don't need fancy soil. They don't even need much space. They just need you to get those seeds in the ground. The cool weather in November actually helps them grow crisper and milder, so you won't get those overly spicy, hot radishes that happen in the summer months. And since they mature so quickly, you can easily fit them in between your slower-growing crops, like your garlic or onions. Here's a clever little trick I love. Mix your radish seeds with your carrot seeds when planting. Carrots, as we know, take forever to sprout, and it can be hard to tell where you even planted them. But the radishes pop up fast, in just a few days, and they mark the rows for you perfectly. Then, by the time you're ready to harvest those radishes, your carrot seedlings will be coming up right behind them, and you've given them freshly aerated soil. It's the perfect 1-2 combo for a small garden. Now, let's move on to a plant that completely changes its personality in the cold. Cilantro. Cilantro is that friend who's wonderful in the right season, but a total drama queen in the heat. In summer, it bolts the second you turn your back. It shoots up flowers, goes bitter, and basically says, "I'm done." But in winter, oh, it behaves. It grows steady, lush, and full of that bright citrusy flavor we love for soups, tacos, and everything in between. Here's the trick. Give it a half day of sun, not a full blast. A spot that gets good morning light and then afternoon shade is perfect. Too much sun, even in winter, and it starts getting stressed out, thinking it's back in July. And if you're growing in containers, even better. You can move the pot around to find that perfect spot. Just keep the soil moist, not drenched, and you'll be clipping fresh cilantro all through the cool months. It's a low-cost, high-flavor herb that rewards anyone patient enough to give it the season it truly loves. So, if you've ever struggled to grow cilantro before, try it this November. It'll make you feel like a pro gardener who finally cracked the code. All right, let's get into another cold weather champion. Kale. If there was ever a plant made for November, it's this one. Kale actually gets tastier after a frost. I'm not kidding. The cold triggers the plant to turn some of its starches into sugars, and that's why winter kale tastes smoother and sweeter. It's nature's way of saying, "Hey, thanks for sticking around." You can sow kale directly in the ground, in containers, or in raised beds. It really doesn't mind where it grows as long as it has decent soil and a bit of sunlight. Once it gets going, you'll have more greens than you know what to do with. Now, here's the golden rule of harvesting kale. Keep plucking the leaves. Don't let them all grow big at once. Harvest from the bottom up, taking the older, larger leaves from the outside and leaving the center crown to keep producing. The more you pick, the more it gives. It's one of those plants that thrives on that gentle, consistent harvesting, keeping it young and productive for months. And if you ever taste kale straight from a cold garden, you'll know exactly why every experienced gardener swears by planting it in late fall. It's strong, it's dependable, and it only gets better with time. Next up, let's talk about beets, the ultimate two-for-one crop. Beets are one of those vegetables that just pull double duty. You get the sweet, earthy roots underneath, and you get the nutritious, delicious greens on top. Both are edible, both are fantastic, and both love the cool weather. When you sow them in November, they settle in quietly over winter and grow nice and steady. The cold keeps their color vibrant and their flavor rich and sweet. The greens are mild when they're young, and the bulbs develop that deep, earthy tone that makes roasted beets taste like candy. But here's where a lot of people mess up. They crowd them. Beets hate roommates. They need their personal space to form those nice round roots. So after your seedlings pop up, you must thin them out gently, leaving about 3 inches between each one. It feels counterintuitive to pull up baby plants, but trust me. And those you pull out early, they go straight into your salad. Nothing is wasted. Beets are the definition of efficient gardening. 2 harvests, 1 plant, minimal effort. And now let's finish this set strong with a quiet achiever. Onions, specifically bunching or overwintering types. These are the crops that don't need much from you at all. They just quietly grow through the winter like they're minding their own business. And then one day, in the grayness of early spring, you'll look out and see all these fresh, bright green shoots waving at you. It's honestly one of the most satisfying surprises in all of gardening. The trick is simple. Mulch deep. Cover them well with straw, shredded leaves, or whatever organic matter you have around. That blanket of mulch keeps the soil temperature steady and protects the bulbs from the harshest frosts. Then, and this is my favorite part, you ignore them until April. Seriously, they don't need babying. You can almost forget they're there, and they'll reward you by being one of the first fresh crops ready when spring finally hits. Onions are that quiet, reliable friend in your garden. Low maintenance, hardworking, and always there when you need them. Hey, if you're still watching, you are my kind of gardener. The real ones who don't quit just because the cold hits. If this video has helped you so far, go ahead and subscribe. I share simple, low-cost gardening wisdom every week to keep your garden alive all year long. Let's keep growing together.